She doesn't deserve it. She abandoned this family years ago." My sister Vanessa's voice carried across the spacious sunroom of our grandmother's Victorian mansion, where just minutes ago I had been peacefully sipping tea, trying to process my grief. I froze in the doorway, my hand still on the ornate brass doorknob, as I watched Vanessa slam her palm against the antique mahogany table where our grandmother's lawyer sat calmly reviewing documents. "Grandma Eleanor was confused," Vanessa continued, tears streaming down her perfectly made-up face. "She couldn't possibly have left Harmony House to Claire. This has been my home for the past 5 years. I'm the one who took care of her." Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. I stepped into the room, my heart pounding against my ribs. 24 hours ago, I'd been in Ecuador, documenting indigenous healing practices for my doctoral dissertation. Now, I stood in my childhood sanctuary, the home where I'd learned to play piano on rainy afternoons while Grandma Eleanor told stories of her travels across Europe as a young musician. The home I'd fled after the family scandal that had torn us apart a decade ago. The home that, according to the stunned expressions around the room, Grandma had apparently left to me. "Claire," my mother whispered, half rising from her seat. She looked older, frailer than the last time I'd seen her. Her eyes darted nervously between me and Vanessa. "You came." "Of course I came," I replied, setting down my worn leather backpack. "She was my grandmother, too." Vanessa whirled to face me, her emerald eyes, so like our mother's, flashing with fury. Well, the prodigal daughter returns, just in time to claim her prize. Mr. Harrington, Grandma's silver-haired attorney, closed the folder in front of him and stood. "Miss Claire," he said with a nod of recognition, "we were just discussing the terms of your grandmother's will. Perhaps we should pause until you've had a chance to settle in." "No," I said firmly, taking a seat at the table opposite my sister. "Please continue. What exactly are the terms regarding Harmony House?" Vanessa laughed, a brittle sound that held no humor. "He was just explaining how Grandma supposedly left her entire estate, including this house where I've been living and caring for her, to you. The granddaughter who couldn't even bother to come home for holidays, who chose dusty artifacts over family." I felt the familiar tightening in my chest, the beginning of the panic that had driven me from this house all those years ago. But I wasn't that frightened 20-year-old anymore. I met my sister's gaze steadily. "Is that true, Mr. Harrington?" The lawyer adjusted his glasses, a gesture I remembered from childhood visits to his office with Grandma. "Your grandmother's will is quite specific, Claire. Harmony House and the majority of her assets have indeed been left to you. There are, of course, provisions for your mother and sister, but the house itself is designated solely for you." The room spun slightly. I hadn't expected this. I'd come to say goodbye, to make peace with the past, not to inherit a mansion filled with complicated memories. "There must be some mistake," I whispered. "The only mistake," Vanessa hissed, "is thinking you can waltz back after 10 years and claim what should rightfully be mine." The grandfather clock in the hallway chimed 3 times, its deep resonance echoing through Harmony House just as it had throughout my childhood. I'd forgotten how sound traveled in this place, how whispers in the library could be heard from the servants' staircase, how the piano in the conservatory would fill every room on the first floor. For 10 years, I'd tried to forget everything about this house. Now, it was apparently mine. I stood at the window of what had been my grandmother's study, watching as Vanessa stormed across the immaculate gardens to the carriage house where she'd been living since returning home 5 years ago.
The reading of the will had ended abruptly after her outburst, with Mr. Harrington suggesting we reconvene the following day when emotions might be less raw. My mother had hurried after Vanessa, shooting me an apologetic glance that spoke volumes
About where her loyalties still lay. "Would you like some tea, Miss Claire?" The gentle voice startled me. I turned to find Mrs. Sullivan, Harmony House's housekeeper for as long as I could remember, standing in the doorway. Her hair had gone completely silver since I'd last seen her, but her kind blue eyes were unchanged. "Mrs. Sullivan," I said, crossing the room to embrace her. "You're still here." "Where else would I be?" she replied with a soft smile. "This has been my home for 35 years. Her expression clouded slightly. "Though I suppose changes may be coming now." I shook my head quickly. "No changes. I don't even know what I'm going to do about any of this yet." I gestured vaguely, at the room, at the entire situation. "I didn't come back expecting to inherit Harmony House." Mrs. Sullivan studied me for a moment. "Your grandmother was certain you would return one day. She never lost faith in that." The words pierced my heart. Grandma Eleanor had been the only one who hadn't tried to stop me when I'd left after the scandal, after my father's betrayal had torn our family apart. "I'll make that tea," Mrs. Sullivan said, patting my arm gently. "You look like you need it." Alone again, I circled the study slowly, taking in the familiar sights. The wall of bookshelves, containing first editions and leather-bound journals, the antique globe that Grandma had used to show me all the places she'd performed as a concert pianist, the Steinway baby grand in the corner where she'd given me lessons until my hands cramped. Everything was exactly as I remembered, preserved, like a museum exhibit of my past. On her desk sat a framed photograph I didn't recognize. Vanessa in a graduation gown, her arm around our grandmother's frail shoulders. Next to it was an older photo of me at 16, playing the piano while Grandma watched with pride. The contrast wasn't subtle. Vanessa, the dedicated granddaughter who'd returned home to care for our aging matriarch. Claire, the one who'd run, away to dig up ancient civilizations halfway across the world. My phone buzzed with a text from Professor Martinez, my dissertation advisor. "How's the family reunion going? Remember, you don't need to stay past the weekend if it's too much. The keto excavation starts in 2 weeks." Before I could reply, I heard the front door slam and rapid footsteps heading toward the study. Vanessa appeared in the doorway, her face flushed with anger or exertion or both. "We need to talk," she announced, closing the door firmly behind her. I gestured to the leather chair across from me. "I'm listening." She remained standing, arms crossed over her chest. "I want to be clear about something. I've been living in Harmony House for 5 years. I gave up my apartment in New York, my job at the gallery, everything to come take care of Grandma when her health started failing. I appreciate that," I said carefully. "Mom told me you've been a great help." Vanessa laughed harshly. "A great help? I've been running this entire household, managing Grandma's medications, coordinating with her doctors, handling the bills, overseeing the staff. Meanwhile, you've been, what? Playing in the dirt in South America?" I felt my face heat. "I've been completing my PhD in anthropology, and I came home when it mattered. When Dad's embezzlement scandal broke. When the family name was being dragged through the courts. I was here. For all of 2 weeks," Vanessa snapped. "Then you ran away again, changed your name back to Mom's maiden name, and pretended we didn't exist. Meanwhile, I stayed. I rebuilt our family's reputation in this town. I made sure Grandma was comfortable and happy in her final years." There was truth in her words, painful as it was to hear. I had run away, had distanced myself from the Pearson name after my father's crimes had been exposed. The family fortune he'd managed had turned out to be built on fraud and stolen funds. The scandal had destroyed our mother, who'd had no idea. Her husband of 25 years had been stealing from their friends, their community, their own family foundation. "I didn't know Grandma was so ill," I said quietly. "No one told me until it was too late." "We tried." Vanessa threw her hands up in exasperation. "Mom called you dozens of times. I emailed you. Grandma herself wrote you letters. Did you even read them?" I looked away, Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. I had read some of them, skimmed others, left many unopened. Each one had been a reminder of the pain I'd fled, of the broken trust and shattered relationships I wasn't ready to repair. "That's what I thought," Vanessa said, her voice bitter. "So you'll understand why it's absolutely insane that she left you this house. A house you haven't set foot in for a decade, that you obviously don't care about, while I'm the one who's been living here, taking care of everything." I took a deep breath. "I didn't ask for this, Vanessa. I'm as surprised as you are." "Then do the right thing," she pressed, leaning forward. "Sign the house over to me. It's what Grandma would have wanted if she'd been thinking clearly at the end." Something in her tone made me hesitate. Was Grandma not thinking clearly? What did her doctors say? Vanessa straightened, smoothing her silk blouse. She had good days and bad days, especially toward the end. The medication sometimes made her confused. "That's why this will doesn't make sense. She told me multiple times she wanted me to have Harmony House." Mrs. Sullivan chose that moment to enter with a tea tray. "Oh, Miss Vanessa, you're back. Shall I bring another cup?" "I won't be staying," my sister replied coldly. "I have a meeting with my lawyer in an hour." I raised an eyebrow. "Your lawyer?" "Yes, Claire. My lawyer. I'm not going to let you swoop in and take what should rightfully be mine without a fight." She turned and strode toward the door, pausing with her hand on the knob. "I've sacrificed 5 years of my life for this family, for this house." "What have you sacrificed?" After she left, Mrs. Sullivan poured tea into a delicate china cup, my grandmother's favorite Wedgwood set. "Your sister has been very dedicated to running the household," she said diplomatically, "though there have been changes not everyone agrees with." I accepted the cup gratefully. "What kind of changes?" Mrs. Sullivan hesitated, then sighed. "It's not my place to say, Miss Claire, but perhaps you should speak with Mr. Harrington privately, before making any decisions about the estate." Her careful wording piqued my curiosity. "Mrs. Sullivan, was my grandmother really confused toward the end? Did she know what she was doing when she made her will?" The housekeeper's eyes widened slightly. "Your grandmother had all her faculties until the very end, Miss Claire. She knew exactly what she was doing with her estate." "Thank you," I said, feeling strangely relieved. "And please, call me Claire. You've known me since I was in pigtails." She smiled warmly. "Very well, Claire. Will you be staying in your old room tonight?" The thought of sleeping in my childhood bedroom, with its faded constellation map on the ceiling and the window seat where I'd spent countless hours reading, sent a surge of mingled comfort and anxiety through me. "Yes, I think I will." After Mrs. Sullivan left, I called Mr. Harrington's office and arranged to meet him privately the next morning. Then I dialed Professor Martinez, updating her on the situation and requesting an extension on my return to Ecuador. Finally, stealing myself, I called my mother. "Claire," she answered on the first ring, her voice strained. "Vanessa is very upset. No, how are you? Or, I've missed you." Just straight to Vanessa's feelings. "Some things never changed." "I imagine she is," I replied. "But I didn't come here to take anything from her. I had no idea Grandma was leaving. Me, Harmony House." My mother sighed heavily. "It's complicated, Claire. Your sister has built her life around this place. She's hosting the Historical Society's annual gala here next month. She's renovating the East Wing for her art studio. She has plans. Plans that apparently Grandma didn't share," I pointed out. "Look, I'm meeting with Mr. Harrington tomorrow to understand exactly what Grandma's wishes were. Maybe there's a solution that works for everyone." "Vanessa doesn't want solutions," my mother said wearily. "She wants the house, and she's convinced. Your grandmother promised it to her." Something in her tone made me pause. "Did Grandma promise it to her?" The silence stretched for several seconds. Not in so many words, my mother finally admitted. But it was implied, given all Vanessa has done these past few years. I rubbed my temples, feeling a headache forming. I need to understand what Grandma actually wanted, Mom, not what Vanessa thinks she deserves. Just be careful, Claire, my mother said softly. Your sister isn't the same person you remember. After we hung up, I wandered through the grand house, reacquainting myself with rooms I had once known by heart. The formal dining room where we'd hosted holiday meals. The conservatory where Grandma had taught me Bach and Chopin. The library, with its hidden door behind the mythology section that led to a tiny reading nook. As I passed the drawing room, I noticed changes that made me frown. Grandma's antique Persian rugs had been replaced with modern white carpeting. Her collection of artifacts from her world travels had been removed from the display cabinets, replaced with sleek, abstract sculptures I didn't recognize. The walls, once a warm sage green, had been painted stark white. I continued through the house, finding more disconcerting changes. The kitchen had been completely modernized, its warm wooden cabinets replaced with cold stainless steel. Grandma's beloved garden paintings had been replaced with large modern canvases, some of which, based on the signature, appeared to be Vanessa's own work. It felt like my sister had been systematically erasing our grandmother's presence from the house even before she'd passed away. By the time I reached my old bedroom, untouched like a time capsule from my teenage years, my unease had deepened. If Vanessa had been so dedicated to caring for our grandmother, why had she been so quick to remove the things our grandmother had loved? As I unpacked my small bag, my phone pinged with an email from an address I didn't recognize. The subject line made my heart skip, regarding Eleanor Kent's true wishes. I opened it immediately. Claire, you don't know me, but I was your grandmother's nurse for the last 2 years of her life. Mrs. Kent spoke of you often and with great affection. There are things about her final months that you should know, things Miss Vanessa wouldn't want revealed. I no longer work at Harmony House. Your sister dismissed me 3 months ago when I questioned some of her decisions regarding your grandmother's care. But I feel I owe it to Mrs. Kent to make sure her true wishes are honored. If you want to know more, meet me tomorrow at 9 a.m. at the Marigold Cafe downtown. Sincerely, Rebecca Wilson. R&I read the email twice, my pulse quickening. The timing was suspicious, the nurse contacting me the very day I arrived back in town. But something about it rang true. Grandma had always inspired fierce loyalty in those who worked for her. I glanced at the clock. Nearly 7 p.m. Outside my window, I could see Vanessa's sleek BMW pulling out of the driveway, presumably heading to her meeting with her lawyer. In the fading evening light, Harmony House's extensive gardens stretched before me. The rose beds and herb garden Grandma had tended herself now looking strangely regimented and formal. My phone buzzed again, a text from an unknown number. Check. Behind the loose brick in the conservatory fireplace. She left something for you there. RWI stared at the message, memories flooding back. The loose brick in the conservatory fireplace had been our secret hiding place when I was a child. Grandma and I would exchange notes there, little treasures and riddles that no one else knew about. It had been our special game, one that even Vanessa hadn't been part of. Heart-pounding, I made my way to the conservatory, relieved to find it empty. The room, at least, looked mostly unchanged. The grand piano still occupied the center, though it looked like it hadn't been played in years. The potted palms and ferns Grandma had loved still filled the corners, and the ornate fireplace, with its hand-painted floral tiles, remained exactly as I remembered. I knelt before it, running my fingers along the bricks until I found the one that moved slightly under pressure. Glancing over my shoulder to ensure I was still alone, I carefully worked the brick loose and reached into the small cavity behind it. My fingers closed around something smooth and cool. A small wooden box. I recognized instantly. It was Grandma's prized music box, the one that played Debussy's Clair de Lune when opened. But as I drew it out, I realized there was something else in the hiding place. An envelope with my name written in my grandmother's elegant handwriting. With trembling fingers, I opened it and began to read. My dearest Claire, if you're reading this, then you've come home at last, just as I always believed you would. And if you found this letter, then things at Harmony House are not as they should be. There is so much I need to tell you. So much you need to understand about why I've left the house to you, despite your sister's expectations. But words written on paper can be discovered, and I fear Vanessa has been reading my correspondence. Come see Mr. Harrington privately. Tell him the moonlight reveals the truth. He'll understand and will give you what you need to protect your inheritance. Trust. Mrs. Sullivan and Rebecca, my nurse. They alone know what has really been happening in this house. I have loved you always, my wandering girl, and I understood why you had to leave. Now I need you to be strong and stand your ground. Your loving grandmother, Eleanor. I clutched the letter to my chest, my mind racing. What had been happening in this house? What did Grandma fear so much that she'd resorted to secret messages and hidden letters? A floorboard creaked behind me and I whirled around, hastily tucking the letter into my pocket. Mrs. Sullivan stood in the doorway, her expression unreadable. Dinner will be ready in an hour, Claire, she said, her eyes darting to the open cavity in the fireplace. You might want to freshen up before then. Mrs. Sullivan, I said carefully. How well did you know my grandmother's nurse, Rebecca Wilson? The housekeeper's face remained impassive, but her hands tightened slightly on her apron. Miss Wilson was very dedicated to your grandmother's care, unlike some of the other staff your sister hired and fired. I nodded slowly. And would you say Grandma was herself in her final months, clear-headed, aware of her decisions? Mrs. Sullivan glanced over her shoulder, then stepped further into the conservatory, lowering her voice. Your grandmother knew exactly what she was doing with her will, Claire, and she was very concerned about some of the changes being made to Harmony House. Changes she didn't approve of. Before I could ask more questions, the front door opened and closed with a bang. Vanessa's voice carried through the hall as she apparently spoke on her phone. Don't worry, I'm handling it, she was saying. She has no idea what's really going on. By this time next week, Harmony House will be mine, just like we planned. Mrs. Sullivan's eyes met mine, her expression grave. Be careful, Claire, she whispered. Not everything here is as it seems. As Vanessa's footsteps approached the conservatory, I quickly replaced the loose brick, the music box safely tucked in my pocket alongside Grandma's letter. Whatever game my sister was playing, I had the distinct feeling I'd just found my first real clue to winning it. Sleep eluded me that night. The unfamiliar comfort of my childhood bed felt like a betrayal after years of fieldwork hammocks and hostel bunks. Moonlight filtered through the lace curtains, casting elaborate shadows across my ceiling, the same constellations I'd watched as a teenager, dreaming of escape. Now I'd returned, only to find myself entangled in a mystery I hadn't anticipated. Rose before dawn, Grandma Eleanor's music box clutched in my hands. I'd listened to Claire de Lune at least a dozen times since finding it, each delicate note bringing back memories of her fingers guiding mine across piano keys. But it wasn't just sentiment that kept me returning to the box. Something about it felt off. The weight was wrong, the mechanism slightly stiff. After careful examination under my phone's flashlight, I discovered a false bottom. Hidden inside was a small, ornate key with an emerald embedded in its handle. By 6 a.m., I was dressed and ready. I slipped out of the house before anyone else stirred, walking the 2 miles into town along routes I still knew by heart. The morning air carried the scent of lilacs and freshly cut grass, so different from the humid rainforest where I'd spent the past 2 years. Marigold Cafe wouldn't open until 7, so I circled the town square, reacquainting myself with my hometown. Oakfield hadn't changed much in 10 years, The same red brick courthouse, the same statue of the town founder, the same hanging flower baskets adorning Main Street. But I had changed, viewing it all through the eyes of an anthropologist now instead of a frightened 20-year-old fleeing scandal. I found myself analyzing the town as I might an excavation site, layers of history, preserved traditions, the artifacts of generations. At precisely 7, I entered Marigold Cafe, selecting a corner table with a clear view of both the entrance and the street outside. The waitress, young, unfamiliar, brought coffee without my asking, a small-town gesture that felt both comforting and intrusive. At 10 minutes to 9, a woman in her 50s with a practical bob and sensible shoes entered, scanning the cafe, until her eyes landed on me. Recognition flickered in her gaze, though we'd never met. "Claire?" she asked as she approached my table. "I'm Rebecca Wilson." I gestured to the empty chair across from me. "Thank you for reaching out. You were my grandmother's nurse?" "For the last 2 years," she confirmed, settling her substantial tote bag beside her chair. "Until your sister dismissed me for interfering with the household management," as she put it. The waitress appeared with fresh coffee for Rebecca, suggesting she was a regular. "What exactly does interfering mean?" I asked once we were alone again. Rebecca stirred 2 sugars into her coffee methodically. "It means I objected when she started restricting your grandmother's visitors. It means I complained when she rescheduled your grandmother's medication to make her more sedated during attorney visits. It means I called her out when I caught her practicing your grandmother's signature." My grip tightened around my mug. "That's a serious accusation." "It's a serious situation," Rebecca countered, her expression grim. "Your grandmother was sharp as a tack until the end, but your sister did everything she could to make the household. Staff, the doctors, and the family lawyer believe otherwise." "Why?" "Control," Rebecca said simply. "And the house, of course. She's been renovating it room by room, erasing your grandmother's taste and replacing it with her own. When your grandmother objected, Vanessa started scheduling her treatments to coincide with contractor visits. When that wasn't enough, she began suggesting to Dr. Marshall that your grandmother was becoming confused, imagining things." The coffee turned bitter in my mouth. "And Dr. Marshall believed her? He's young, only been practicing a few years. And your sister can be very persuasive." She reached into her tote bag and removed a leather-bound journal. "This belonged to your grandmother. She asked me to keep it safe about 3 months before she passed. I've been holding it until you returned, just as she requested." I accepted the journal with trembling hands. "How did she know I'd come back?" "I hadn't spoken to her in years." Rebecca's eyes softened. "She never doubted you, Claire. She said you'd return when it mattered most, and she was right." The journal's cover was worn smooth, the pages filled with my grandmother's elegant, slanting script. I flipped through it, catching glimpses of dated entries, lists of medications, notes about conversations with lawyers. "She documented everything," Rebecca explained. "Every change Vanessa made to the house without permission, every time she was denied a visitor, every lost piece of mail from you." I looked up sharply. "Lost mail?" "Your letters, postcards, even emails. They never reached her. Vanessa intercepted everything, told your grandmother you'd stopped writing entirely." Rebecca's mouth set in a hard line. "Your grandmother suspected as much, which is why she asked me to mail her letters to you from outside the house. Did you receive them?" The guilt crashed over me like a wave. "Some of them. I didn't. I couldn't bring myself to read most of them. After Dad's scandal, I just wanted to forget everything connected to it." "She understood that," Rebecca said gently. "But she never stopped trying to reach you, especially after she discovered what Vanessa was doing." I swallowed against the tightness in my throat. "Which was what, exactly?" "Systematically selling off your grandmother's most valuable possessions and replacing them with replicas or modern pieces." Rebecca pulled out her phone, swiping through photos. "I documented what I could. That Tiffany lamp in the library? Gone, replaced with a reproduction. The Monet in the drawing room? Sold, replaced with a high-quality forgery. Even her jewelry, pieces disappeared every few weeks. She passed me, the phone, and I scrolled through dozens of photos, empty spaces where paintings had hung, before and after shots of furniture being replaced. Vanessa escorting appraisers through rooms when our grandmother was supposedly at medical appointments. Your grandmother realized what was happening about a year ago, Rebecca continued. She started keeping inventory, hiding her most precious belongings, and changed her will to ensure Vanessa couldn't touch anything else. Why didn't she go to the police? I asked, handing the phone back. Against her own granddaughter? She couldn't bear the scandal, not after what happened with your father. Rebecca shook her head. Besides, Vanessa had already started the narrative that Eleanor was becoming mentally incompetent. Who would believe? An allegedly confused old woman over the devoted granddaughter who'd sacrificed her career to care for her? I thought of the emerald key hidden in my pocket, of Grandma's cryptic note. She mentioned Mr. Harrington in her letter to me, said to tell him, "The moonlight reveals the truth." Rebecca nodded. Your meeting with him is at 10, correct? Good. That phrase is significant. It's a reference only he would understand. Your grandmother made arrangements, Claire. Trust the process. The cafe had filled while we talked, local business people grabbing coffee before work, mothers with young children occupying the tables near the small play area. A few curious gazes drifted our way, the returning prodigal daughter of the disgraced Pearson family, deep in conversation with the nurse who'd been dramatically fired from Harmony House. I should go, I said, gathering the journal and rising. Thank you for keeping this safe. And for looking out for my grandmother when I couldn't. Rebecca touched my arm. There's one more thing. The renovations your sister has been making to the East Wing, they're not for an art studio. I overheard her on the phone with developers. Once she gains ownership, she's planning to bulldoze that section of the house to make way for luxury condominiums. The historic garden would become a parking structure. I froze. That's impossible. Harmony House is protected by the Historical Society. It can't be partially demolished. Unless the owner applies for rezoning and presents architectural plans that preserve the historic facade while enhancing property utility. Which is exactly what your sister has been working on for months. Rebecca zipped her tote bag closed with finality. Your grandmother found the plans. That's when she changed her will to make absolutely certain the house would go to you. The revelation left me reeling. Vanessa wasn't just redecorating or claiming what she thought she deserved. She was planning to dismantle our family legacy piece by piece. I checked my watch. I need to get to Harrington's office. Be careful, Rebecca warned. Your sister has had years to build her story in this town. People believe what she wants them to believe. I left the cafe with my mind racing, Grandma's journal clutched tightly under my arm. The 10-block walk to Harrington's law office gave me time to process Rebecca's revelations. Each step brought clarity, determination replacing the confusion that had clouded my thoughts since arriving. Harrington Legal Services occupied the same limestone building it had for the past 50 years, the brass nameplate polished to a high shine. Inside, the reception area smelled of lemon polish and old books, a comforting continuity in a situation that kept shifting beneath my feet. The receptionist, gray-haired, horn-rimmed glasses, ancient cardigan, looked up as I entered. Recognition dawned in her eyes. Claire Kent, she said, using my mother's maiden name, the name I'd readopted after the scandal. My goodness, you're the spitting image of your grandmother when she was young. Mr. Harrington is expecting you. She led me down a hallway lined with framed diplomas and local awards to an office at the far end. Mr. Harrington rose from behind his massive oak desk as I entered, extending a hand in greeting. Claire, he said warmly, it's been far too long. Please, have a seat. Though his hair had thinned and whitened since I'd last seen him, his keen blue eyes remained sharp behind wire-rimmed glasses. He looked like what he was, a man who'd spent decades protecting the legal interests of the town's oldest families. "I appreciate you meeting with me privately," I began, setting my grandmother's journal on the desk between us. "There's something I need to tell you before we proceed with any legal matters." He folded his hands atop a leather portfolio. "I'm listening." I took a deep breath. The moonlight reveals the truth. The change was immediate and dramatic. Mr. Harrington's professional detachment vanished, replaced by intense focus. Without a word, he stood, locked his office door, and returned to press a hidden button beneath his desk. The bookcase behind him slid silently to the left, revealing a small, windowless room dominated by a state-of-the-art safe. "Your grandmother said you would come," he said, entering a complex combination into the safe's digital keypad. "She made me promise that no matter how long it took, I would hold these materials for you and you alone." The safe door swung open to reveal neatly labeled file folders, USB drives, and what appeared to be a second, smaller lockbox. Mr. Harrington removed it all, arranging the materials on his desk with methodical precision. "What I'm about to share with you was entrusted to me under strict legal confidence," he explained, his tone grave. "Your grandmother suspected, correctly as it turns out, that her personal and legal affairs were being monitored and manipulated. So we created this parallel documentation system, accessible only upon your return and only when activated by the phrase she chose." He opened the first file, revealing dozens of official-looking documents. "This is the true record of your grandmother's estate planning, executed and witnessed according to all legal requirements. What was presented at yesterday's reading was a simplified version that omitted certain sensitive details." I leaned forward, scanning the top document. "The Eleanor Kent Trust? A legal entity created 3 years ago, technically the owner, of Harmony House and most of your grandmother's assets. You are the sole trustee, with specific conservation and maintenance provisions to ensure the property remains intact for at least 75 years. He tapped another document. "This prevents any possibility of partial demolition, rezoning, or commercial development of the site." The relief swept through me so forcefully I nearly gasped. "So Vanessa cannot touch the property, regardless of any claims she might make," Mr. Harrington confirmed. "However, your grandmother was concerned about more than just the house." He opened another folder containing photographs, inventory lists, and what appeared to be insurance documentation. "This is a complete catalog of your grandmother's art collection, antiques, jewelry, and other valuables as they existed 3 years ago, before items began to disappear." I recognized Rebecca's photographs among the documentation. My grandmother's nurse provided similar evidence. "Miss Wilson was instrumental in helping document the ongoing removal of assets," Harrington nodded. "But what you may not realize is the scale of what's been taken. We're talking about millions in art and antiques, Claire. Some pieces that have been in your family for generations." The enormity of the theft staggered me. "But why would the family lawyer allow this? I wasn't always present during your sister's visits with your grandmother," he admitted, regret evident in his voice. "And on the occasions I was, your grandmother appeared sedated, often agreeing to whatever was suggested. It wasn't until Miss Wilson contacted me with her suspicions that I began to investigate more thoroughly." He opened another file, this one containing medical records. "These are your grandmother's true medical assessments, conducted by specialists when your sister believed she was at routine appointments. As you can see, there was no cognitive decline, no dementia, no confusion. She was entirely competent to make legal decisions." I thought of Vanessa's insistence that Grandma had been confused, that she couldn't have meant to leave me the house. "My sister has been lying to everyone." "I'm afraid it goes beyond mere deception," Harrington said grimly, reaching for the small lockbox. "This contains the most troubling evidence, Evidence your grandmother insisted should only be revealed if absolutely necessary to protect her. True wishes. He inserted a key from his desk drawer, then looked at me expectantly. The box requires 2 keys. Your grandmother said you would have the second one. With shaking fingers, I removed the emerald key from my pocket. The 2 keys turned in unison, and the box opened to reveal a flash drive and a sealed envelope with my name written across it. I haven't seen the contents, Harrington admitted. Your grandmother uploaded the files herself and sealed the letter afterward. Whatever is contained here, she meant it for your eyes only. I inserted the flash drive into his computer. A folder appeared containing video files, each labeled with dates from the past year. I clicked on the most recent one, dated, just 3 weeks before my grandmother's death. The video showed my grandmother's bedroom, apparently recorded from a hidden camera. Grandma Eleanor sat propped up in bed, frail but alert, while Vanessa moved around the room, picking up and rearranging items on the dresser. I've been thinking about Claire, my grandmother said, her voice stronger than I expected. Vanessa's back stiffened visibly. What about her? I'd like to try contacting her again. Perhaps if you helped me set up that video call you mentioned. She doesn't want to talk to you, Vanessa cut in sharply. I told you. I reached out and she declined, said she was too busy with her research. The lie was delivered so smoothly I almost believed it myself. On screen, my grandmother's expression fell. I see. Well, perhaps I could dictate a letter. What's the point? Vanessa turned, something hard in her expression. She abandoned this family when we needed her most. She changed her name, ran away to dig in the dirt halfway across the world. Meanwhile, I'm the one who came back, who's taking care of you, who's preserving the family legacy. By selling off pieces of it? My grandmother asked quietly. Vanessa froze. I don't know what you mean. The Tiffany lamp is a reproduction. The silver service is missing 3 pieces. My mother's emerald necklace hasn't been in my jewelry box for months. Grandma's voice remained calm, but her eyes were sharp. Did you think I wouldn't notice, Vanessa? You're confused again, my sister said, reaching for a pill bottle on the nightstand. Dr. Marshall said these episodes might happen. Here, it's time for your medication. I'm not taking more medication, and I'm not confused. My grandmother pushed herself straighter against the pillows. I've spoken with Mr. Harrington about changing my will. Harmony House will go to Claire, along with protocols to protect it from being carved up and sold off piece by piece. Vanessa's face transformed, a mask of concern dropping away to reveal cold fury. You can't do that. I've invested everything in this place. I've given up my life to care for you. You've been systematically dismantling my home and selling my possessions, Grandma countered, remarkably composed in the face of Vanessa's rage. Did you think I was too old and feeble to notice? Too medicated to care? My sister stalked closer, to the bed, her voice dropping to a threatening whisper. No one will believe you. I've made sure of that. Dr. Marshall thinks you're slipping. The staff has seen your episodes. Even darling Claire hasn't bothered to return your calls or letters in years. Who exactly do you think is going to stop? Me? I am, my grandmother said simply. Vanessa laughed, the sound chilling. You can barely make it to the bathroom without help. Your precious house is already mine in every way that matters. And once you're gone, I'll do exactly what I want with it. She snatched up the pill bottle again, shaking out tablets. Now take your medication like a good grandmother and stop fighting the inevitable. The video ended abruptly. I sat frozen, horror and rage warring within me. There are dozens more recordings, Harrington said quietly. Your grandmother had cameras installed after the first items went missing. She was building a case, Claire, not just to protect her estate, but to expose what was happening. I reached for the sealed envelope with numb fingers, breaking the wax seal to reveal my grandmother's familiar handwriting. My dearest Claire, if you're reading this, then 2 things have come to pass. I am gone, and you have found your way home, at last. I never doubted you would return when it truly mattered. What you've seen and heard will be painful to accept. Vanessa's betrayal runs deeper than you yet know. The videos document not just theft, but elder abuse, forgery, and attempts to administer medication without consent. I could have gone to the authorities, but scandal has already torn this family apart once. I chose instead to protect what matters most, Harmony House and its legacy, which I have always intended for you. The legal protections are in place. The trust cannot be broken, but there is still the matter of the missing artifacts and family treasures. Mr. Harrington has the complete inventory and documentation needed to recover what belongs to you. Confronting Vanessa directly may be dangerous. She has grown desperate and unpredictable. Trust Mr. Harrington to guide you through the legal process safely. Know that I never blamed you for leaving after your father's disgrace. Some wounds can only heal with distance. But Harmony House has always been your true inheritance. Not because you stayed, but because you alone understand what it represents. Not status or wealth, but history, legacy, and the power of coming home. With all my love, Grandma Eleanor P.S. The East Garden wall safe contains what she could not find, the most valuable pieces and documentation she could never locate. The combination is the date we first played Claire de Lune together. I lowered the letter, tears blurring my vision. I need to secure the house immediately. Mr. Harrington nodded grimly. I've already prepared the necessary paperwork. As trustee, you have full legal authority to change locks, limit access, and inventory the remaining contents. But Claire. He leaned forward, his expression grave. Your sister won't relinquish control easily. Are you prepared for what comes next? The question hung in the air between us, weighted with implications. Was I prepared to confront the sister who had systematically stolen from and manipulated our dying grandmother? Was I ready to fight for an inheritance I hadn't known I wanted until yesterday? I thought of my grandmother's courage in the video, her clear-eyed assessment of her situation despite Vanessa's gaslighting. I thought of the hidden key, the secret messages, the faith that I would return to set things right. Yes, I said firmly, tucking my grandmother's letter into my pocket alongside the emerald key. I'm prepared to do whatever it takes. I returned to Harmony House with a locksmith, a security specialist, and a court-appointed inspector. Mr. Harrington had moved with impressive efficiency, securing an emergency injunction based on the evidence of theft and potential property damage. Judge Winters, an old friend of my grandmother's, had signed the order within the hour, granting me immediate exclusive access to the property as trustee. The locksmith was changing the final deadbolt when Vanessa's BMW screeched into the circular driveway, gravel spraying under her abrupt stop. She emerged like a storm front, designer sunglasses hiding her eyes, cashmere sweater billowing in the spring breeze. "What the hell is going on?" she demanded, striding toward us. "Who are these people? Why is that man touching our door?" I stepped forward, intercepting her before she reached the porch. "They're changing the locks, Vanessa, by order of Judge Winters." I held out the court documents Mr. Harrington had prepared. Effective immediately, access to Harmony House is restricted to authorized personnel only. She snatched the papers, scanning them with increasing disbelief. This is ridiculous. On what grounds? Theft of valuable assets, evidence of elder abuse, attempted property conversion contrary to historical preservation covenants. I maintained a calm I didn't entirely feel. Take your pick. The security specialist, a retired police officer named Dawson, approached respectfully. "Ms. Kent, we've completed the preliminary security assessment. The new system can be installed tomorrow morning." "Thank you," I nodded. "Please ensure the camera placements we discussed are included." "Camera placements?" Vanessa laughed incredulously. "You're putting me under surveillance? In my own home?" "Actually, Grandma beat me to it," I replied evenly. "She had cameras installed months ago. How do you think we have footage of you threatening?" Her selling her possessions and forcing medication she didn't need? The color drained from Vanessa's face. Her grip on the court order tightened until the paper crumpled. You're bluffing. The evidence has already been submitted to the court, I said. Mr. Harrington has copies. Judge Winters has copies. The police department has copies. The police? Her voice climbed an octave. Not for criminal charges. Yet. I glanced pointedly at her handbag, a Hermes Kelly that had belonged to our grandmother. Though that depends entirely on how cooperative you choose to be about returning what isn't yours. The inspector emerged from the house with a clipboard and camera. Ms. Kent, I've documented the condition of the main floor and second level. The structural changes to the east wing are concerning. Several load-bearing walls have been compromised. Thank you. You, Mr. Prescott? I said. Please include that in your report. You can't do this, Vanessa hissed, throwing the court order to the ground. I've lived here for 5 years. I've invested thousands in renovations. I have rights. As what? A caretaker? A guest? Because you're certainly not the owner or legal occupant. I maintained a measured tone despite the anger simmering beneath. The surface. Grandma's trust is quite specific about who has authority over Harmony House. It isn't you. Vanessa took a step toward me, finger pointed accusingly. You abandoned her. You abandoned all of us after Dad's disgrace. You don't get to swoop in now and claim some moral high ground. Behind her, a police cruiser pulled into the driveway, the final element of Mr. Harrington's carefully orchestrated plan. Officer Martinez approached with practiced authority, her expression professionally neutral. Is there a problem here? She asked, one hand resting casually near her belt. No problem, I replied. My sister was just leaving. I most certainly am not, Vanessa protested. This is my home. Officer Martinez studied the situation, then extended her hand to me. You must be Claire Kent. Mr. Harrington mentioned you'd be executing a court order today. May I see the documentation? I retrieved the crumpled papers from the ground, smoothing them before handing them over. Martinez reviewed them carefully, then turned to Vanessa. Ma'am, this appears to be in order. The injunction grants exclusive property access to Claire Kent as trustee of the Eleanor Kent Trust. You'll need to vacate the premises immediately. This is absurd, Vanessa sputtered. I need to at least collect my things. You can retrieve essential personal items under supervision, Officer Martinez stated. Anything else will need to be inventoried and approved for removal by the court-appointed inspector. My clothes are in there, my artwork, Actually, I interrupted, we need to verify which artworks are originals belonging to the estate and which are your personal creations. The same goes for any valuable items. According to Grandma's inventory, quite a few things have gone missing under your management. A tense silence fell as Vanessa calculated her options. I could almost see the wheels turning behind her carefully, composed expression, weighing defiance against the reality of a police presence. Fine, she finally spat. I'll get my overnight essentials. But this isn't over, Claire. Not by a long shot. Officer Martinez accompanied her inside, following procedural protocol for potentially volatile situations. I remained on the porch, staring at the grand facade of Harmony House. For the first time since arriving, I allowed myself to truly see the changes Vanessa had made. The modernized windows that clashed with the Victorian architecture, the sleek steel railings replacing ornate wrought iron, the minimalist landscaping stripped of Grandma's beloved heirloom roses. Mr. Dawson approached, clipboard in hand. We'll have the security system fully operational by tomorrow afternoon. In the meantime, I'll have 2 of my people keep watch overnight. Thank you, I said, suddenly exhausted by the confrontation. I appreciate your thoroughness. 20 minutes later, Vanessa emerged with a single suitcase and a venomous glare. I've called Mother, she announced. She's horrified by your behavior. Expect to hear from her soon. I look forward to it, I replied calmly. I have quite a few questions about how much she knew regarding your activities here. Vanessa stalked to her car, throwing the suitcase into the trunk. You have no idea what you're doing, she called over her shoulder. No idea who you're dealing with. Actually, I think I do, I answered. The question is, do you know who you're dealing with? I'm not the same person who ran away 10 years ago, Vanessa. I don't scare easily anymore. For a fleeting moment, uncertainty flashed across her perfect features. Then she slid into her car and sped away, gravel crunching under her tires. I exhaled slowly, the tension of the confrontation leaving my body in waves. Behind me, Officer Martinez cleared her throat. That went about as well as could be expected, she observed. The inspector found something upstairs you should see. I followed her to what had been my grandmother's suite of rooms. Mr. Prescott stood in the walk-in closet, which had been converted into what appeared to be a small office space. A sleek laptop sat on a modern glass desk, surrounded by files and ledgers. Found this hidden behind a false panel, he explained, holding up a leather-bound ledger. It contains records of sales, art, antiques, jewelry, dating back nearly 3 years. Each entry includes buyers' names, sale prices, and commission percentages. I accepted the ledger with unsteady hands. The first page alone documented over $300,000 in sales, all items I recognized from Grandma's collections. There's more, Officer Martinez said, gesturing to the laptop. We can't access it without proper authorization, but given the evidence, we could request a warrant. I nodded, trying to process the scope of Vanessa's betrayal. I'll discuss it with Mr. Harrington. For now, can we secure everything as evidence? Already arranging it, Prescott confirmed. We'll document and seal this room until proper forensic procedures can be followed. Outside the closet, Grandma's bedroom remained largely untouched, her 4-poster bed with its hand-stitched quilt, the delicate vanity where she'd brushed her silver hair each night, the bookshelves lined with her favorite poetry collections. But her presence felt diluted somehow, as if Vanessa had been systematically erasing her even before her death. I crossed to the window seat where Grandma had often sat reading. The cushion felt unusually firm beneath my fingers. Acting on instinct, I lifted it to reveal a hidden compartment containing a small wooden chest. Inside lay the missing emerald necklace Rebecca had mentioned, my great-grandmother's wedding gift, along with several other jewelry pieces I recognized from family photographs. Beneath them was another letter in my grandmother's handwriting, dated just 2 weeks before her death. My darling Claire, if you found this, then you've already learned much of the truth. These few pieces I managed to hide when I realized what was happening. The rest, I fear, are lost to us unless you can recover them through legal means. But jewels and paintings are not what matter most. This house, our family's heart and history, must be protected at all costs. Vanessa sees only its market value, its potential for profit. You have always understood its soul. When you were a child, you told me that the house whispered stories to you at night. You felt its generations, its memories. That sensitivity, that connection to our past, is why Harmony House belongs to you. Be strong, my girl. The road ahead will not be easy. Vanessa has powerful allies, including some within our family who have chosen willful blindness over uncomfortable truths. Remember the garden vault. Remember the music box. And remember that I have loved you completely, always. Grandma. My phone vibrated with a text from my mother. What have you done? Vanessa says you've had her forcibly removed from the house. This isn't like you, Claire. We need to talk. Before I could respond, another message appeared, this one from an unknown number. You're making a serious mistake. The development plans for Harmony East are already in motion. Contracts have been signed. Millions are at stake. Back off now, or you'll regret it. I took a screenshot of the threatening message and forwarded it to Mr. Harrington before typing. A careful response to my mother, Yes, we absolutely need to talk. There's much you don't know. Come to Harmony House tomorrow at 10. Bring Vanessa if you wish. Mr. Harrington will be present. Officer Martinez touched my arm gently. Are you all right? You've gone pale. I showed her the threatening text. Apparently, my sister has powerful allies, just as Grandma warned. She frowned. I'll include this in my report. Meanwhile, I'd recommend staying somewhere else tonight, at least until the security system is installed. I appreciate the concern, I said, glancing around the bedroom that held so many memories. But I'm not leaving. This is my home, and it's time I started protecting it properly. After the officials departed, with Dawson's security team established discreetly on the grounds, I wandered through Harmony House alone. Each room told a story of Vanessa's systematic appropriation, Grandma's antique music cabinet replaced with a sleek entertainment center, her collection of first-edition novels missing from library shelves, her prized china replaced with minimalist modern dishware. In the kitchen, Mrs. Sullivan was preparing dinner, her movements precise and efficient, despite the day's chaos. Will you be dining in the small breakfast room, Claire? I've made your grandmother's roast chicken. The normalcy of the question amid such extraordinary circumstances almost made me laugh. That would be lovely, Mrs. Sullivan. Thank you for staying through all this. She wiped her hands on her apron, fixing me with a penetrating gaze. I've served this house for 35 years. I know what belongs here and what doesn't. What happened today was long overdue. Over dinner, I reviewed Grandma's journal, connecting entries to the evidence we'd gathered. The story it told was damning, a calculated campaign to isolate my grandmother, control her estate, and systematically strip away both her possessions and her autonomy. Most disturbing were the entries from her final months, when she'd realized the full scope of Vanessa's betrayal, but was too physically frail to combat it directly. Instead, she'd created an intricate web of contingency plans, hiding evidence, establishing the trust, and maintaining faith that I would eventually return, to execute her true wishes. The doorbell rang just as I was finishing my meal. Mrs. Sullivan appeared moments later, her expression cautious. Dr. Marshall is here. He says it's urgent. I recognized the name from Rebecca's account. The young doctor Vanessa had manipulated into believing our grandmother was mentally declining. Show him in, I decided after a moment's consideration. Know your opponents, as Grandma would say. Dr. Marshall appeared nervous, fidgeting with his tie as he entered. He was younger than I'd expected, perhaps early 30s, with the earnest demeanor of someone still trying to establish himself professionally. Miss Kent, he began formally. I came as soon as I heard what happened. I feel I must explain my role in your grandmother's care. Please sit. I gestured to the chair across from me. I'd be very interested to hear your explanation of how my perfectly lucid grandmother was documented as having cognitive decline. He flushed, confirming my suspicion that guilt, not indignation, had driven his visit. Your sister presented concerns about memory lapses, confusion over medications, paranoid ideation. As her primary caregiver, her observations carried significant clinical weight. And did you ever evaluate my grandmother independently, without Vanessa present? He looked down at his hands. Your sister insisted on being present during examinations. She claimed your grandmother became anxious otherwise. And the increased sedation? The unnecessary medications? His discomfort intensified. The prescriptions were appropriate for the symptoms reported. If those symptoms were exaggerated, then obviously the treatment plan would have been different. I studied him carefully. Not malicious, perhaps, but certainly negligent. Dr. Marshall, are you aware that my grandmother documented everything? That she had cameras installed which recorded Vanessa fabricating symptoms and pressing medications on her that she didn't want or need? The color drained from his face. I had no idea. No, I don't suppose you did, I said, more tired than angry. You saw what Vanessa wanted you to see, a devoted granddaughter caring for an elderly woman. You never questioned why that woman's condition seemed to worsen only when critical decisions needed to be made. I'm prepared to submit a corrected medical assessment, he offered quickly, to acknowledge that my observations may have been influenced by incomplete information. That would be appropriate, I agreed. Mr. Harrington will be in touch regarding the documentation we need. Is there anything else? He hesitated, then reached into his jacket pocket and withdrew a small notebook. Your grandmother gave me this last year. Said if anything happened to her, I should ensure it reached you. I kept it in my desk, unsure what to do with it when she passed. Then today, when I heard about the court order, I accepted the, notebook, recognizing Grandma's distinctive handwriting on the cover. For Claire, the complete inventory. She was a remarkable woman, Dr. Marshall said softly. Far sharper than I gave her credit for. I'm sorry I failed her. After he left, I opened the notebook to find a meticulous accounting of every item Vanessa had sold or replaced. Dates, approximate values, and most crucially, details that would help identify the originals. Tiny repair marks on the Tiffany lamp, a small burn on the corner of the Persian rug, a distinctive brushstroke pattern on the Monet. The last page contained a single line. The garden vault combination is our special day. The east wall, behind Eleanor's roses. I moved through the darkened house to the garden doors, stepping out into the cool evening air. The security guard nodded respectfully from his position near the gazebo as I made my way to the east wall, where Grandma's namesake roses, Eleanor's blush, had once grown in profusion. The rose bed had been replaced with architectural grasses, but the stone wall behind it remained unchanged. I ran my fingers along the weathered surface until I found it, a section that shifted slightly under pressure, revealing a small digital keypad. Our special day. Not my birthday or hers, but the day she'd taken me to my first piano recital, April 17, 2005. I entered UR 4172005, holding my breath. The panel slid open silently, revealing a small vault containing a waterproof document case. Inside were property deeds, stock certificates, flash drives labeled backup evidence, and a small velvet pouch. The pouch contained my grandfather's pocket watch, the one piece of family history I'd always cherished, the one I'd thought lost during the chaos after my father's scandal. A small note was attached in Grandma's handwriting. For Claire, who always understood the value of time. Use it wisely, my darling. I clutched the watch to my chest, tears flowing freely for the first time since returning to Harmony House. That moment, surrounded by the garden my grandmother had loved, I felt her presence more strongly than ever, not as a ghost, but as a force of determination and foresight that had transcended even her final days. Whatever challenges lay ahead with Vanessa and her mysterious allies, I knew one thing with absolute certainty. Grandma Eleanor had entrusted Harmony House to me for a reason, and I would not fail her again. Dawn broke over Harmony House with a stillness that belied the storm of the previous day. I stood on the conservatory balcony, grandfather's pocket watch in hand, watching as the first light gilded the damaged gardens. The security team had maintained their vigilance through the night, reporting no disturbances beyond a few curious neighbors slowing as they drove past. My phone had accumulated 37 missed calls overnight, 20 from Vanessa, 12 from my mother, 3 from unknown numbers, and surprisingly, 2 from my dissertation advisor, Professor Martinez. I listened to his voicemail first. Claire, there's something strange happening. Someone's been inquiring about your research schedule, asking when you're returning to Ecuador. They claim to be from the university administration, but when I checked, no such inquiry was authorized. Be careful. Call me. A chill ran through me despite the morning warmth. Vanessa's powerful allies were already probing my vulnerabilities, looking for leverage. My academic career, The life I'd built far from family drama was no longer a safe distance from this conflict. The security installation team arrived promptly at 8, led by Mr. Dawson. By 10, Harmony House bristled with modern protective measures discreetly integrated into its historic framework. Motion sensors, cameras, reinforced entry points. The contrast wasn't lost on me. Grandma Eleanor had preserved the past while I fortified against the future. At 10:15, my mother arrived alone, her Mercedes pulling cautiously into the driveway. She emerged looking immaculate yet fragile, designer sunglasses hiding what I suspected were sleepless eyes. I met her on the front steps, unsure whether to expect an embrace or an attack. "Claire," she said, removing her sunglasses, "we need to talk." I gestured toward the garden pavilion rather than inviting her inside. The neutral territory seemed appropriate for what promised to be a difficult conversation. "Where's Vanessa?" I asked once we were seated beneath the wisteria-draped trellis. "At her lawyer's office." My mother smoothed invisible wrinkles from her linen slacks. "She's distraught. Says you fabricated evidence against her. Turned Grandma Eleanor's staff against her. Is that what you believe?" She hesitated, fingers worrying at her wedding band. Not from her marriage to my father, but to Richard, her current husband. "I don't know what to believe anymore. Vanessa has always been dramatic, but you've always been truthful, even when the truth hurt." From my messenger bag, I withdrew Grandma's journal and the ledger documenting Vanessa's sales of family treasures. "These aren't fabrications, Mom. This is evidence of systematic theft and elder manipulation spanning years." My mother's hands trembled as she paged through the documentation. "I don't understand. Why would she do this? We were never in financial trouble." "It wasn't about need," I said gently. "It was about control and entitlement. Vanessa believed Harmony House should be hers. When Grandma made it clear it wasn't, she started taking what she could." Tears welled in my mother's eyes. I should have seen it. I should have questioned why Eleanor suddenly needed so much medication, why Vanessa insisted on handling all communication with her. Vanessa fooled a lot of people, I acknowledged. Her doctor, her lawyers. She created a convincing narrative of a devoted granddaughter caring for a declining matriarch. "But not Eleanor herself," my mother said, a hint of pride emerging through her distress. "She knew, didn't she? She anticipated all of this." I nodded, thinking of the intricate contingency plans my grandmother had established. She documented everything, created legal protections, and believed I would return to execute her wishes. And now? What happens next? I sighed, looking out over the grounds that had shaped my childhood. We recover what we can of the stolen property. We restore Harmony House to what it should be. And we decide how to handle Vanessa. My mother stiffened. "You're not pressing criminal charges?" "That depends entirely on her," I said carefully. "Mr. Harrington has prepared paperwork offering immunity in exchange for full cooperation, returning what remains of the proceeds, identifying buyers, assisting in recovery efforts. And if she refuses? Then yes, we pursue criminal charges. Elder abuse, theft, fraud, all of it." She closed her eyes briefly, absorbing the gravity of the situation. "You know she won't go down without a fight. And she's not alone in this. Richard's development company." She stopped abruptly, horror dawning in her expression. "Is involved in the condominium plans," I finished. "I know, Mom. The anonymous threats came from a phone registered to Apex Development Group. I checked." The blood drained from my mother's face. "Claire, I swear I didn't know. Richard never mentioned, but he knew who owned Harmony House," I interrupted. "He knew it belonged to Grandma, not Vanessa. He had to know the development plans wouldn't be legal without proper ownership. Unless Vanessa convinced him she would inherit," my mother whispered, "that it was just a matter of time. The pieces, aligned with sickening clarity: my stepfather's development company, Vanessa's unauthorized renovations, the rushed timeline to begin construction. They had gambled on Grandma Eleanor dying without proper estate planning, or on Vanessa successfully manipulating her way into ownership. "I need to speak with Richard," my mother said, rising abruptly. "I need to understand his role in this." "Be careful, Mom," I cautioned. "There are millions at stake in those development plans. Contracts signed, investors committed." She squared, her shoulders with a determination I hadn't seen since before my father's scandal. "I've been blind once to financial impropriety in my marriage. Never again." After she left, I walked the grounds with Mrs. Sullivan, cataloging the changes Vanessa had made to Grandma's beloved gardens. The heritage roses replaced with architectural grasses, the vegetable garden paved for additional parking, the children's maze where I'd once played for hours, completely razed. "We can restore it," Mrs. Sullivan said, noting my distress. "Your grandmother kept records of every plant, every design. She believed gardens, like families, could recover from even the harshest pruning." That afternoon, Rebecca Wilson returned to Harmony House, this time officially reinstated as part of the household staff. Together we began the painstaking process of documenting what remained of Grandma's possessions, identifying what had been replaced with replicas, creating a comprehensive inventory for recovery efforts. As sunset painted the sky in shades of amber and rose, I stood in the conservatory, running my fingers along the piano keys that had fallen silent during Vanessa's tenure. The melody came back to me slowly at first, then with increasing confidence. Claire de Lune, Grandma's favorite, the piece that carried my name and now carried her final secrets. The music filled Harmony House for the first time in years, flowing through rooms that had witnessed both betrayal and extraordinary foresight. In that moment, I understood why my grandmother had entrusted this legacy to me. Not because I had stayed, but because I would return with the strength to protect what mattered most. My phone vibrated with a text from Mr. Harrington. "Vanessa has refused the settlement offer, preparing to file criminal charges tomorrow morning. Are you certain you want to proceed?" I looked around at the home my grandmother had preserved through decades, at the legacy she had protected with such care and determination. My fingers continued playing while I dictated my response through the phone's voice feature. "Absolutely certain. Grandma Eleanor deserves justice, and Harmony House deserves the truth." 2 years later, Harmony House glowed in the late afternoon sunlight, its restored Victorian facade a testament to 18 months of painstaking historical renovation. Where Vanessa had installed sleek modern windows, original stained glass now filtered sunlight into rainbow patterns across polished hardwood floors. The grand staircase, stripped of its minimalist steel railings, once again boasted intricately carved banisters that told our family's story through subtle woodwork details. I placed the final recovered treasure, a Tiffany lamp authenticated, just last week, on the library table where it had stood for generations. The insurance investigator had traced it to an antiques dealer in Brussels, one of the many international buyers who'd unwittingly purchased Harmony House's heritage piece by piece. "Perfect," murmured Margaret Chen, the historical preservation consultant who'd guided the restoration process. "Your grandmother would approve." "She orchestrated all of this," I replied, adjusting the lamp slightly. "I just followed her blueprint." Margaret smiled, consulting her tablet. "With that placement, we've officially completed the interior restoration according to the historical registry requirements. The certificate will be presented at next week's ceremony." Through the library windows, I could see teams of landscapers putting finishing touches on the garden restoration. Grandma's heritage roses once again climbed the east wall, concealing the vault that had protected crucial evidence. The children's maze had been replanted, its paths already showing signs of the lush growth that would eventually transform it into a green sanctuary. My phone chimed with a calendar reminder: 3 p.m. Final session with documentary team. For the past month, a production company had been filming Harmony House's restoration for a series on historical preservation and family legacy. Today, they would capture the final interview, the culmination of a story that had made headlines across the state. As I made my way to the conservatory where the crew waited, I passed the newly established Harmony House museum room. What had once been Vanessa's planned demolition site was now a public educational space, displaying family photographs, artifacts from the house's 150-year history, and a carefully curated exhibit explaining Grandma Eleanor's remarkable musical career. The documentary director, Sophia, greeted me warmly. "Ready for the final piece?" I nodded, settling into the chair positioned before the conservatory's grand piano. Fully restored now, its ivories gleaming. "Where would you like to begin?" "Let's start with the aftermath of the criminal charges," she suggested, signaling her cameraman. "The public only knows what made the news." I collected my thoughts as the camera's red light blinked on. "The criminal case never went to trial," I began. Once Vanessa realized the extent of evidence Grandma Eleanor had accumulated, the videos, the financial records, the medical documentation, she accepted a plea agreement. She's currently serving 18 months in a minimum security facility for elder abuse and fraud. "And your stepfather?" Sophia prompted. "Richard's development company lost their permits and investment capital when the scandal broke. He maintained he didn't know the extent of Vanessa's deception, but internal emails proved otherwise. He's awaiting trial for conspiracy and securities fraud." "Your mother must have been devastated." I smiled sadly, thinking of Mom's transformation over the past 2 years. The second betrayal was actually liberating for her. She filed for divorce immediately and has become one of the state's most vocal advocates for elder protection legislation. The Eleanor Kent Act, which passed last month, creates stricter oversight for caregivers managing assets for elderly family members. Beyond the legal ramifications, the past 2 years had reshaped relationships I'd thought permanently broken. My mother and I had rebuilt our connection through shared purpose. She focusing on legislative protection, I on the physical restoration of our family legacy. We still disagreed on many things, but the silent chasm of my post-scandal departure had finally closed. "And the academic career you put on hold?" Sophia asked. I glanced at the framed doctorate on the wall, completed 6 months ago after extensive remote work and periodic field visits. I found a way to bring my two worlds together. Starting next month, Harmony House will host a summer academic program for anthropology students studying cultural preservation through family estates. What happened here, the attempted erasure of history for profit, happens globally on much larger scales. Sophia nodded appreciatively. And the recovery efforts for the stolen items? About 60% of Grandma's collection has been returned so far, I explained. Art and antiques appear at auction houses periodically, and thanks to Grandma's meticulous documentation, we can prove provenance. The international investigation continues, though some pieces may never be recovered. The most surprising development, one I was still processing, had come just last month when a package arrived from Switzerland. Inside was Grandma's emerald necklace, accompanied by a simple note in Vanessa's handwriting. I was wrong. I'm sorry. Whether genuine remorse or strategic groundwork for her eventual release, the gesture had nonetheless returned one of our family's most treasured heirlooms. I hadn't responded, unsure if forgiveness was possible or even appropriate, yet. Some wounds required more than apologies to heal. As the interview concluded, Sophia's team captured footage of me playing Clair de Lune on the restored piano, a symbolic bookend to the documentary. The familiar notes filled the conservatory, spilling into rooms that once again reflected my grandmother's vision, rather than Vanessa's modernist erasure. Later that evening, as twilight settled over the gardens, Rebecca Wilson joined me for tea on the veranda. Now serving as Harmony House's head of operations, she oversaw both the household staff and the new educational programs. The Historical Society called, she mentioned, pouring Earl Grey into delicate china cups. They've unanimously approved Harmony House for landmark status. Once registered, it can never be commercially developed, regardless of future ownership. Grandma would be pleased, I said, watching fireflies begin their nightly dance over the lawn. That was her ultimate goal, protection beyond her lifetime. Rebecca nodded toward the driveway, where a small tour bus was departing after the day's final public tour. She never could have imagined this transformation, though, from private residence to living museum and educational center. I think she might have, I mused. Her letter mentioned legacy and history, not just family occupation. She understood that some treasures belong to more than just those who inherit them. The pocket watch Grandma had preserved for me now hung from a delicate chain around my neck, its gentle ticking a reminder of her foresight and patience. In my darkest moments during the legal battles and renovation challenges, I had held it close, drawing strength from the knowledge that she had anticipated these struggles and believed I could overcome them. As stars appeared in the deepening dusk, I thought about the journey from that first confrontation in the sunroom to this peaceful evening. Harmony House had been saved not just from Vanessa's development schemes, but from the spiritual erosion that comes from disconnection with history. In restoring its physical beauty, I had also restored my own connection to a past I had once fled. The first overnight student group arrives next Tuesday, Rebecca reminded me, gathering the tea things. 15 anthropology undergraduates eager to learn about cultural preservation through lived experience. I smiled, imagining Grandma Eleanor's approval of classrooms in the former ballroom, research stations in the library, and earnest young scholars discovering family histories in the very spaces where those histories had unfolded. "We'll be ready," I assured her, watching the last golden light fade from Harmony House's restored facade. After all, that's what this place was always meant to be. Not just preserved, but alive with purpose. 5 years after inheriting Harmony House. The autumn breeze carried the scent of wood smoke and fallen leaves as I guided 20 graduate students through the East Garden. Golden light filtered through century-old oak trees, illuminating the heritage roses that now flourished against the restored stone wall. "This garden tells its own story of resilience," I explained, gesturing to the meticulously documented plantings. Many of these specimens were believed lost forever when this area was paved over for a planned parking structure. But my grandmother had preserved cuttings with local nurseries decades earlier, anticipating that someday they might need to be reborn. A student raised her hand. Was that typical of her? Planning so far ahead for things that might never happen? I smiled, touching the pocket watch that still hung around my neck. Eleanor Kent lived by a philosophy that true preservation isn't passive. It's active, anticipatory, even revolutionary when necessary. She didn't just protect the past, she secured pathways for its future. As the students dispersed to complete their field assignments, I spotted a familiar figure waiting near the garden pavilion. Mr. Harrington, now semi-retired but still serving as Harmony House's legal advisor, waved me over. "The papers are finalized," he announced, patting his leather portfolio. "As of this morning, the Harmony House Trust is officially expanded to include the adjacent Thompson property. The conservation easement covers both parcels now." The news lifted a weight I'd carried for months. The neighboring estate, similar in age and historical significance to Harmony House, had been threatened by commercial development after its elderly owner passed away. Using the foundation established with proceeds from my academic grants and the documentary licensing, we'd managed to purchase the property and place it under the same protections that safeguarded Harmony House. That brings the preserved historical corridor to nearly 15 acres, I noted with satisfaction. Grandma would be amazed at how her vision has expanded. I'm not so sure she'd be surprised, Mr. Harrington mused, his eyes twinkling. Eleanor always played the long game. I suspect she saw possibilities none of us could imagine. We walked slowly toward the main house, where preparations were underway for tomorrow's symposium on family legacies and historical preservation in the modern era. Scholars from 3 continents would present research, much of it inspired by what had now become known as the Harmony House model of integrated preservation, an approach that combined architectural restoration, cultural education, and community engagement. "Have you heard from Vanessa?" Mr. Harrington asked carefully. I nodded, having anticipated the question. "She completed her parole requirements last month. She's living in Arizona now, working at a cultural heritage museum, ironically enough. The journey with my sister had taken unexpected turns since her release from prison 3 years ago. The emerald necklace had been merely the first step in a complicated process of accountability. No tearful reconciliation had occurred. No dramatic forgiveness scene like those depicted in movies. Instead, a cautious, arm's-length relationship had emerged through carefully worded emails and occasional professional interactions. Vanessa had chosen to serve her debt not just legally, but personally, using her art background to help document and preserve artifacts, at risk of being lost to time or development. Whether motivated by genuine remorse or simply a pragmatic rebuilding of her life, the work was valuable. Some wounds never fully healed, but they could transform into something constructive. "And your mother's foundation?" Mr. Harrington inquired as we entered the main hall, where staff were arranging chairs for tomorrow's opening session. 3 new safe house locations opened last quarter, I reported with pride. The Eleanor Kent Foundation now provides emergency housing for elderly individuals at risk of financial exploitation or abuse. Mom's channeled everything she learned from her experiences into something truly essential. My mother's transformation had been the most unexpected gift of this journey. From the bewildered woman who had always sought peace at any price, she had evolved into a formidable advocate with legislative connections and a fierce determination to protect vulnerable seniors. Our weekly strategy sessions over tea and harmony, House's sunroom had healed rifts I'd once thought permanent. As Mr. Harrington departed, I continued my rounds of the property, checking final preparations for tomorrow's events. In the library, now housing the Eleanor Kent collection of historical preservation resources, Rebecca supervised the installation of a new display case. "Just arrived this morning," she explained, carefully positioning a weathered leather music folio inside the climate-controlled cabinet. "Your grandmother's original scores from her European tour in 1952. The Vienna Philharmonic found them in their archives during their digitization project." I peered at the yellowed pages covered in my grandmother's distinctive notations. Another piece of her legacy, returning home like a migrating bird finding its way across impossible distances. "Sometimes I think she orchestrated all of this from beyond," I confessed to Rebecca. "Not just the protection of Harmony House, but everything that's flowed from it. The foundation, the educational programs, even the reconciliations that seemed impossible 5 years ago." Rebecca smiled. "Your grandmother understood something essential about legacy. That it isn't just about leaving things behind, but about setting events in motion. She planted seeds, Claire. You've helped them grow." Later that evening, after the staff had departed and the house settled into twilight quietude, I made my way to the conservatory. The space had become my sanctuary, particularly on evenings before major events when my mind raced with logistical concerns and emotional undercurrents. I sat at the Steinway, fingers finding their way to Clair de Lune without conscious thought. The piece had acquired layers of meaning over the years, no longer just a favorite melody or a cleverly disguised clue, but the thread connecting past to present, wound through every triumph and challenge of the past 5 years. As the final notes faded, I became aware of a presence in the doorway. Professor Martinez, my former advisor, now a frequent collaborator, stood listening, his expression reflective. "Your students are setting up an impromptu seminar on the veranda," he reported with amusement. "Something about night photography, of historical structures and the embodiment of memory through light capture. I thought you'd want to know. I laughed, rising from the piano bench. Grandma would approve. She always said Harmony House looked most truthful by moonlight. Speaking of approving, Martinez continued as we walked toward the veranda, the International Heritage Committee voted unanimously this afternoon. The Harmony House preservation methodology has been adopted as a template for their global initiative. Your case study will be published in their official guidelines next month. The news caught me mid-stride. What had begun as a desperate effort to protect one house from one sister's greed had expanded beyond anything I could have imagined, touching preservation efforts across continents, influencing protection protocols for countless historical properties. Outside, students had arranged chairs in a semicircle facing the illuminated facade of Harmony House. Their animated discussion about architectural photography techniques and preservation documentation floated through the evening. These young scholars would carry forward methods pioneered here, applying them to endangered historical sites worldwide. As I watched them working together, I felt a profound sense of rightness, as if this moment represented exactly what Harmony House was meant to become. Not a static monument to the past, but a living bridge between generations. Not merely preserved, but actively preserving. I touched my grandfather's pocket watch, its steady ticking a reminder of Grandma Eleanor's final message. Use time wisely, my darling. 5 years ago, I'd returned to Harmony House a reluctant heiress, unprepared for the battle awaiting me. Tonight, I stood as its steward, having discovered that true inheritance isn't just about receiving, it's about transforming what you're given and passing it forward. The moonlight revealed this truth, just as Grandma had promised it would. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hits the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.